The very thing that the education system does not want you to be is free. Just think about that for a second. From day one, we're basically trained to fit perfectly into a mold, to work for somebody else's destiny. But today, we're breaking out of that mold. Welcome to This Explainer. I am so incredibly pumped to guide you through this material today because we're unpacking the raw, unfiltered insights of Simon Squibb. He's an entrepreneur who has spent the last 35 years literally cracking the code on business and personal freedom.
If you're here, you're a focused learner looking for a direct, no-nonsense path to understanding. And honestly, that is exactly what This Explainer is all about. We're looking at the inside-out approach to business, 35 years of startup wisdom. We are taking hard-won insights from a guy who has built 19 companies and invested in 78 different startups, and we're condensing all of that. Decades of trial, error, and massive success, all boiled down into a highly actionable, visual roadmap that you can start using literally today. Okay, let's dive right into this. To structure our journey, we're going to move through 5 distinct steps. Elaborate on yourself first. Map, don't plan. Build your core tribe. Sell sizzle, not steak. And finally, fueling and scaling up.
So starting off with section 1, elaborate on yourself first. Mastering your inner drive before building a company.
You know, we're so often told that business starts by finding some unique gap in the market. But a truly sustainable business, that fundamentally starts by figuring out your own internal motivations. You must elaborate yourself too. Think about this comparison for a minute. The traditional school system taught us that if you have a weakness, you've got to improve it to become well-rounded. Well, in business, that is basically a recipe for mediocrity. You need to identify what you absolutely love doing and then get obsessively good at it. The things you hate, partner with someone else or outsource them immediately. You build your business entirely around your unique obsession, not your weaknesses. Once you actually know what you love, you've got to connect it to a purpose. And look, true purpose isn't just some flashy corporate buzzword. It is deeply personal. It's about identifying a specific problem that bothers you so deeply that you want to solve it operating on a pure give-without-take mindset. When you elaborate on yourself enough to uncover this purpose, a pretty magical thing happens in your company. You stop having to manage people, and you simply start managing the purpose. The people who align with your mission, they'll just manage themselves. Moving right along to section 2, map, don't plan. Ditching the rigid business plan. Once you've figured yourself out, you're finally ready to execute. But instead of drawing up a 20-page linear business plan that totally restricts your adaptability, you need a dynamic mind map. Right in the center is your hobby, that obsession we just talked about. From there, it naturally branches out to your core business concept, then to your first, easiest point of execution. For example, Squibb actually started with a super simple podcast just to help people out. That organic execution branches out to an expanding network of guests and brands, which eventually branches into a highly scalable product, like a web app. A mind map keeps you nimble, guys. It allows you to pivot and connect the dots as your business breathes and grows.
Which brings us to section 3, build your core tribe, finding co-founders and hiring smart.
'Cause let's be real, you can't scale your mind map all by yourself. When you're looking for a co-founder, you need someone with the exact opposite skill sets as you, but the exact same moral code. So how do you even test for that? Well, Squibb uses this really provocative conversational tool called the 40-year reputation test. You sit down and ask your potential partner, would you take a deal where you get 40 years of absolute billionaire-level wealth, private jets, multiple mansions, the whole shebang, but at age 70, everyone finds out you are a total fraud and your reputation is ruined forever? Surprisingly, about 50% of people say yes to the money. If they do, walk away right then and there. You want to build a tribe that values long-term integrity way more than short-term ego and cash.
So the absolutely crucial point here is, when you do find that perfect co-founder, how do you split the business? 50-50. Period. End of discussion. A lot of founders try to pull off a 52-48 split just so they can maintain control, but honestly, this is a massive psychological mistake. It instantly breeds resentment because the other person is eventually going to feel like they're doing 52% of the work for only 48% of the reward. You don't manage control through an equity imbalance, you manage control legally through a properly drafted shareholder agreement. Keep the equity split equal to keep the motivation equal.
Now, as you expand your team beyond just your co-founders, you are inevitably going to have to fire people, and our source outlines a pretty fascinating rule for this, the 7s and 8s rule. Your 9s and 10s, those are your absolute superstars. You keep them motivated by giving them real equity in the company. The 1s and 2s, Well, they're obviously terrible and get fired easily. But the real danger is the sevens and eights. They are almost good enough. They just kind of get by. But here's the harsh reality. If you let sevens and eights surf through your company without firing them, your nines and tens will eventually leave because they deeply resent the lowered standards.
All right, section 4, sell sizzle, not steak. The counterintuitive guide to sales.
Shifting our focus over to the external market now, we have to tackle how you actually generate revenue. Selling is definitely not about dumping a boring list of product features on a customer. It is all about the emotional sizzle. It's just like how Steve Jobs sold tools for creative game changers, not just, raw processor speeds. To sell that sizzle effectively, you really need this beautifully simple 3-step system. Step 1, do the research. Do they actually need you? If not, do not waste their time. Step 2 is where most people completely fail. Do you genuinely like each other? If you discover right in the middle of the pitch that the prospect is rude or you simply just don't vibe, walk away. Seriously. Never progress to step 3, the deal, if step 2 is a hard no. Taking money from people you don't like is exactly how you build a business you hate. And remember, the timeline for a deal isn't always instant. Harvard research actually shows that most salespeople just give up after 5 attempts. But the secret of the top 1%? It is polite, long-term persistence. Squibb shares this incredible anecdote about reaching out to a list of dream clients every single month. And he wasn't always selling. Sometimes he was just wishing them well or sending over a helpful industry article. For some of the biggest clients, it took up to 9 years of monthly touchpoints to finally close the deal. That kind of persistence looks like pure luck to outsiders, but it is 100% engineered. Once you have your sales engine running, you need to hack your marketing and PR to stand out boldly. Our source calls this the staircase method, and it's named after an incredibly surprising anecdote. Squibb literally bought a physical staircase at a London auction for £26,000. I know, it sounds absolutely crazy, right? But it allowed him to totally newsjack the press. He leveraged this bizarre story to get millions of dollars in free global PR. Then he put a doorbell at the bottom of the staircase for people to pitch their dreams, which eventually attracted strategic brand partnerships with massive companies like Amazon's Ring. Stand out boldly, and I promise you, the market will do your marketing for you.
On to our final phase, Section 5, fueling and scaling up. Untraditional ways to get funding.
Society loves to tell us that the only way to scale is to get on our knees and beg venture capitalists for millions of dollars while giving away complete control of our company. But there are far more strategic ways to fuel your growth. If you want angel investors, here's the secret strategy. Do not ask for money. Ask them for advice. Make them feel truly valued for their brain, and you naturally trigger FOMO, the fear of missing out on a great opportunity. Now, if you want brands or sponsors to fund your expansion, often the best move is to bypass the brand completely and pitch directly to their media buyers or agencies who already hold the advertising budgets. And lastly, never, ever underestimate the core team. By giving your top talent equity, they inherently invest their own time and sometimes even their own capital, becoming your absolute most reliable source of funding.
But hey, whether you take funding or you decide to bootstrap it, you have to remember this golden rule. Delay gratification. Patience is arguably an entrepreneur's single greatest superpower. Just look at the massive tech companies out there. They built enormous user bases and immense value for years and years before they ever flipped the switch to monetize. Rushing to extract cash from your audience way too early will fracture their trust and completely destroy your long-term brand value. Build the value first, and the monetization will naturally follow.
And as you build, you really must bust the most pervasive myth in the corporate world. We are all taught that hard work equals success. But as our source brilliantly points out, if hard work alone equaled wealth, well, every nurse in the world would be a millionaire. The real hack to manufacturing success is taking risks. It's about leaning into fear, failing like a D student so you can learn how to bounce back, and taking calculated, bold bets. That right there is how you literally make yourself lucky.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from finding your internal drive to scaling a global brand. But it all circles right back to where we started. You. The education system always asked you, what are you going to do when you grow up? That was the wrong question all along. So I am going to leave you with the right one, the one that should keep you up tonight. What problem are you going to solve? Stop working on someone else's destiny. Find your purpose, elaborate yourself to, and let's get to work.